A few days back, Brawlhalla made a dev stream directly within their offices, addressing the issues within the game, their own mistakes, and hopes for the future, with all full honesty. I think a lot of the community and myself were pretty satisfied with this, as it gave the devs a feeling of personal care about the game again, and showed that they were working towards a brighter future. Everything I cover in this video is going to be my own condensed take on what the stream covered, as well as some parts moving forward. If you want to see longer versions, I recommend either Egg Soup or Costlux videos in this, and I'll link both of them down below. I think the main thing that the Office stream wanted to put into the heads of the player base is that BMG does truly care about the game, and they aren't staffed like other major corporations with hundreds or even thousands of employees, and that's probably why everything they put out takes a long time. At the same time, this is also why streams like this can seem almost personalized, as they all want this game to see longevity, and they're working every day to achieve it. Anyways, the first part of the stream I want to mention was the accountability that they took for the RGB color fiasco. It seems like they understood that leaking a color a year in advance without mentioning that it would be the first paid color ever was a major blunder on their part. However, now that it's been out and people purchased it, they really can't take it back, and they've accepted that. It's honestly just a W move from them, as they aren't really the kind of devs to go and try to run a major profit off of something like a legend color. So I think the main idea might have just been to switch up the exclusivity of the color, or just change things up. However, with the gambling aspect to it, that if you want just one color, it has to be to a random legend, and the fact that in Brawlhalla's 10 years, the game has never charged players for a color scheme, it reasonably set off players, and at least they understood that, and they addressed it. Moving on, I want to mention the other part of the paid cosmetics in Brawlhalla, or for a more recent PoE in particular, the Ascended skins. The dev mentioned that upping their skin game for things like these is part of their premium additions to the game, which means that things like the crazy skins we've seen recently are a necessity in order for the game to continue in the future, as they need to have higher quality stuff to attract new players and to keep their players in the game, and just to make money. I myself have no problem with this. They are cool additions in my opinion, and although I'll probably never purchase one, I think they add more style and quality to the game's appearance. On top of this, they also discuss skills, which have been something that the community's really wanted and they've mentioned in the past, but they've been yet to actually implement them into the game, even when they have what look like successful drops. In the stream though, they did give us some interesting looks at what kinds of features would be available with guilds, as I'll show on screen. And it's pretty clear to see that this could be a solid way to boost engagement in the game and bring communities together. It's almost like clans do in Clash Royale, but you'd be competing against whoever's in your guild. I feel like adding the whole leaderboard aspect can motivate players and challenge them to surpass others in the guild, and who knows what kinds of specifics they'll add to the mockups with time. Again though, with them being a smaller team, these changes will not be immediate, and patience will be the biggest challenge for this game's community, it seems like. Now it's time for my personal favorite part talked about in this stream, the in-game tournaments. There wasn't honestly too much detail given on these, however just comparing them to other games like Valorant or Rocket League, I can't wait to see just how cool it would be to load up a tournament with your friend in 2s, or just competing with others around your elo in 1s. I really enjoy these aspects in other games, as it just brings out a lot in the players, and who knows, maybe they add rewards or other things to it. Overall, I believe that this can make a difference in the popularity of the esports scene and the competitive side of Brawlhalla, as more and more people could familiarize to just the sheer levels of talent that there are in the game, and perhaps even motivate themselves to work on their skills, grind in ranked, or practice for these tournaments. This is definitely an important part to add to the game, especially since there have been struggles with community tournaments due to lack of player participation. It would also just be nice to see more people come and improve the skill ceiling in the game and be motivated to get better. There's mention of a PvE mode in the ideas of the devs far along in the future. However, this is one of the things that I really brushed off, as it doesn't really interest me, and I don't believe that in the fighting game that a progressing AI mode or some kind of challenge mode against bots would be of enjoyment for many. I'm not trying to speak for the players, and I obviously don't speak for them, but I just don't have interest in things like that. I prefer more player per player. I just think for a fighting game, that's just the way it should be. They can prove me wrong though. At least when I think of PvE, I think of the Hellboy crossover when Horde was a big limited time mode. And honestly, it was enjoyable. I love playing it with friends, but honestly, besides that, outside of like wave clearing modes, I don't see how PvE would benefit Brawlhalla. On the other hand, what does excite me is that they had some talk about some balancing changes that I believe aren't essential to the growth of the game. However, I think that they will smooth gameplay and competitive play more. Firstly was the planned changes for dashing in the game, possibly a more consistent or polished movement is what they're looking for with this. I know that there are a lot of aspects of the dash, so I'm curious to see where they plan on going with this. But the modification I'm more excited about is with the dexterity stat. Since Brawlhalla has been released, the clear option for most useless stat in the game has been dexterity. It just really doesn't have anything beyond slight differences in combos on rare occasions. This is why they finally plan on adding a better use for it by making you hold onto your weapon longer if your character has higher dexterity. For example, now the slow heavy hitters like Taros and Zol will be disarmed after fewer hits than those who have higher dexterity, allowing for more opportunities for legends that have a lot of points invested in dex. Overall, just a great choice for Brawlhalla in my opinion. Well, that pretty much sums up most of the significant ideas they mentioned. Obviously timelines are unclear, but we do hope that we see some of them in this coming year. Now it's time for the real question. Does it save the game's state? And this is where my knowledge runs out. I'm not sure. Brawlhalla is stuck with a player base where the majority seems to run the narrative that anything the devs change with the game is bad, or they just love hating against updates in general. And I understand where most hate stems from, as I myself have felt the frustrations as a player who has to face an absurdly unbalanced meta or is just stuck with stale content. However, I hope that players can now see the effort and love that the development team has for the game, and get out from the blind side that I used to even be shaded by.